Podcasting for brands. IamTheHow.com.
Listening to Sound Art Radio on 102.5 FM.
Fade up, take the microphone. Hi, it's Dave Clark. This is Sound Art Radio, 102.5 FM and online. As I said, I'm Dave Clark. I am the How. And it's good to be back in the studio. I've had a break of around about 4 weeks, which has been wonderful, but it's really nice to be back. And this week I'm very happy to welcome Dawn from
Angelion.
Angelion. You see, I'm going to say, for some reason, we rehearsed this, didn't we? And I was like, Angelion, it's not Angel. Angelion, Dawn from Angelion. Welcome to the studio.
Thank you, Dave.
Sorry about that.
No, you don't have to apologize. Everybody finds it confusing. I find it confusing someday.
Yeah, okay. And I think it's just because I'm just sitting here after like 4 weeks of not sitting here. So I'm just kind of getting back into the zone. But I'm firmly back in the zone now. So, Dawn, tell us, what have you been up to today?
You asked me that earlier, and I was going to be quite literal.
Yep.
It's September. September is a time of kind of clearing out, making room, harvesting.
Yep.
So I have been literally sorting out my shed, picking some fresh apples from the trees outside. My neighbors are just brilliant, dehydrating stuff, and just really kind of getting ready to just see what the autumn brings.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So not spring cleaning, sort of autumn sweeping.
Yeah. Well, I think it's really, really important. I think it's a time of the year that we harvest. We look at what's happened over the last 9 months and we figure out what's yet to come before it starts getting cold over the winter.
Yeah, batten down the hatches a little bit and kind of look forward to it. It's nice because it's nice and seasonal. And
we had a lovely day today with no rain, which was amazing.
No. I know, it's good. So tell me, in a nutshell, what is it that you do?
Okay, so I'm a career and business coach. That doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people. So I think when you think of the word coach, the way that I like to say is I'm your career advocate or career cheerleader. If you look at it from an American perspective,
okay.
I suffer with that, with being an expat Yank myself.
So. Okay. So a career cheerleader.
A career cheerleader.
Okay. So
without the dress.
No. Okay. So we will unpack that a little bit in terms of what that really means to businesses. But you mentioned your roots, I guess. Where how did it all start? So take us back. Where did you grow up? What were the kind of first jobs you did? What brought you to this part of the world and more specifically to the world of coaching? So,
absolutely. I can talk beyond anything you can ever imagine. So I'm going to keep it quite brief. I've pretty much done every career. Okay. I was going to be a veterinary surgeon. So I used to work as a dog groomer. I also worked in veterinary clinics growing up. I worked as a Pizza Hut waitress. I have worked across most industries. I detasseled corn, so I worked in agriculture, all of this in the States. And at university, I was working 2 or 3 jobs. I was a cleaner as well as working in the local vet clinic. So kind of by the time I got finished with university and came over here to England in 1996, I met somebody who was British, moved over here, got married. And by the time I moved over here, I'd done quite a lot within kind of healthcare, animals and things like that. But my kind of career world came crashing down when I moved to England. And I realized that my education didn't mean anything over here.
Okay. So what were you studying when you were at college?
Veterinary surgery. I was going to be a veterinary surgeon.
Right,
so in America, you do 8 years. Wow. Here you do 5. So I did the first 4 and love kind of stepped in and my grades were too low to get into university over here. And I didn't realize that. So when I came over and I was a student, had all these brilliant ambitions, just like a lot of students do, who I do coach as well, about, my degree is going to get me a really good job. And it didn't. Right. I worked in a care home when I first came over here for £2.65 an hour.
Yeah.
I worked as a receptionist, and this was in 1996, 97 for a legal firm. But one of the attitudes I brought into work was every single thing I did, I wanted to learn something. I wanted to learn, and then I wanted to improve myself. Okay. And I didn't understand that was important.
Did you feel, when you realised that the veterinary career wasn't going to take off in the UK. Did you kind of feel, was there a sense of, disappointment? Were you shocked? Were you surprised? Did you feel like the rug had been pulled away?
That's a really, really good question. I was horrified, to be honest. I literally had spent from the time I was, 6 years old wanting to work with animals. But on reflection, I remember years later, I went back and I met a vet who I had worked with. And she was a large animal vet. That was what I specialized in, so horses, cows, etc.
Yeah.
And she had broken all of her fingers, had frostbite, and was missing toes. And she said to me, Dawn, the best thing you ever could have done was to own animals, not to work with them. So in hindsight, and I really do believe this, not only for me, but for my clients, if I stay in the moment, the right thing happens as long as I show up.
Yeah. Okay, that's interesting. So, but at the time, you may not have kind of known that. You didn't have that wisdom necessarily.
No, I didn't. But what I did have was perseverance and resilience, and I knew that I could get up. And I think that was the story of my entire career, and actually most of my life, which is, despite adversity, there was some internal sense of knowing, and this is how I coach now, that everything was okay because I was okay.
Right.
And I think that is what I really like helping people to see. Is regardless of what's happening around you, in your career, in your business, intrinsically inside you, you're fundamentally going to be okay.
Okay, interesting. I mean, I just as a matter of fact, I went from school to university. I was studying biology. I did my first year down here at Exeter, and I failed my first year exams, and that was a huge shock because I was never academically brilliant, but I was perfectly capable of achieving O-levels and A-levels. So to suddenly find that I'd hit this barrier and had failed, this was the word, you failed, and was no longer able to continue, that for me was a real slap round the face. But I agree that there was an element of resilience, knowing I'd be okay, but nonetheless, it was still a bit of a wake-up call.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that I see is people will tackle that from two different perspectives. They'll either carry that past into their present and repeat that story over and over and over again because they internalize the idea that they're a failure.
Right.
Or they'll understand that fundamentally they're okay.
Yeah.
And actually, that's just something that happened in the past.
Right.
Because looking back at failures actually just reinforces the fact that something is wrong in our world. Where actually fundamentally inside we're okay. It's just our thoughts about those previous experiences that actually keep us stuck in our business and our career. Right. And it's that when I see clients who are resilient enough to get up and keep going, to not let those stories define them today.
Sure.
It's getting to that. And every human being is capable of that inner resilience. They just sometimes need a little help from someone to point it out.
Yeah, and failure is a kind of strange word because it implies, it means failure, but failure in itself isn't a bad thing.
Exactly.
It doesn't need to be a bad thing.
Well, and it's our thoughts about something that hasn't worked out. Life shows up, right? Life shows up in every moment, right?
Yeah.
Something happens, someone pulls out in front of you in your car when you're driving. You don't get that interview. You don't get that job. A client doesn't sign with you. That doesn't mean that something else isn't going to happen tomorrow.
Sure.
But it's how we're showing up to life every moment.
Yeah.
And I think that it took me a long time to figure out that there was something different. In every single time something would go wrong, I would look at life and go, well, that's okay, but because if I'm okay, I'm not fundamentally bad, but something's going wrong with the direction I'm going with my career.
Right. Interesting. So, we're going to talk about that a bit more as well. But when did the sort of coaching part begin to take shape and become something that you felt confident enough to go out there and sort of offer to the big wide world?
Absolutely. I was pushed into it, really, being honest. So I had a lot of career changes. I'll be honest with you. This is the reason why I coach careers, because I've done a lot. So I built my way up as a consultant, self-taught in IT, worked in IT for many years, moved through lots of businesses and realized I like to talk. So I started working with people. And what happened is when I started working with people and people who weren't understood, so people who are artists or, graphic artists who are really creative and programmers who are really creative but don't know how to talk to each other, business people who are brilliant but just got so frustrated, I realized I was really good at speaking the language of the in-between, brokering those conversations. But fundamentally what happened was I got to a point where I knew a lot about IT and a lot about business, but I couldn't figure out how people worked. So I did a lot of introspection, probably in about 2013, between I had my daughter. I think when you have a child, wisdom comes in and you think to yourself, I think I want to do something different and help the world rather than pursuing money and career.
Sure.
And so in about 2012, I had a major loss of a career. And I went off and got a degree in business. I thought that was the right direction. So I've done a lot of changes. And then what happened was when I came back into the world, someone spotted me who I used to work with and said, we're looking for coaches in technology. And that was my way in.
Okay.
So I was a coach coaching large teams on change programs. And I don't know if anybody listening has ever been part of a change program. It's one of the most painful things that can ever happen to you because change is often thrust on you rather than something you actually want to do. Yeah. So a lot of the times you get my favorite book, not Who Moved My Cheese, when you're about to lose your job or when they're about to put a change consultant in to tell you what to do.
Sure.
And what I noticed was these big team changes weren't working. They weren't. People weren't ready to change. They didn't want change to be thrust on them because they didn't think anything was wrong. Yeah. And most of the time it wasn't. It was in the minds and perceptions of the management that something was wrong. And often these teams were working really well. It was just the joined up thinking between the company that wasn't. Yep. So I kept thinking to myself, I keep getting pushed toward coaching. And then I was at university and I met a student. He was a graduate student from China. And I was so inspired by his go-gettedness, by the fact that he was networking and he was out there trying to build his career. I thought to myself, wow, I know how to get jobs. I know how to interview. I know how to move between careers. I know a little bit about how coaching works. Maybe I'll try this. So I got a job as a freelance coach doing career coaching for a company up in London. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I got bit by the bug. And I thought to myself, I really want to learn about coaching. I just don't want to just be a life coach. I don't want to just do a certificate. I want to go on and do a degree. Okay. So I did a degree. I'm doing it at the moment still after 3 years in personal and business coaching. But more importantly, I sought a coach and I got support. And I think when you ask me, how did I know that I was going to be a coach? My journey has been one of constantly discerning my place in the world. And it wasn't until, and this is my kind of penultimate story, in March of this year, when I went to the Church of England asking if I should be a priest, and when I read through the discernment notes of the advisors way up in Church House in Westminster, and they said to me, Dawn, you talk nonstop about wanting to be a coach. We don't think you want to be a priest. Right, okay. And it was at that moment that I really realized if you cut me in half, you would see a smiley face, because that's my inner color. I want to bring joy to the world in people's careers, but then you would also see a coach, and that is who I really am.
Brilliant. So so life, as you say, life turned up, and
amen.
In all these different scenarios that you found yourself in. But it's interesting, isn't it, that you've, like many people, you've found your purpose for now doing what you're doing. Not necessarily through something that you were told or thought you should do when you were younger. It's a kind of dawning.
Literally, Dave. But no, it was, and I think that's the thing. I think my partner and I were talking about a business called Purpose, which we wanted to look at to help people who are chronically unemployed to actually get work as a charity. Yeah. And we've been talking about it for quite a long time because it's something that helping an individual to be able to see that they're of use in the world, that they're doing their best service, that they're bringing joy to their 9 to 5 every day. Helping people to understand that they're intrinsically okay no matter what happens, what shows up in life, even if they say no. I mean, I focus on careers because I think that I think it's important for me. I could focus on so many different areas, but it's something that's always shown up as something like, I've always been kind of good at that. I don't know why. So it's kind of using intuition, wisdom, and skill, and what life shows up with in the moment. Yeah. And I think you and I have spoken about that. You can have 1,000 skills in your toolkit, but it isn't until actually you quiet down and listen to that. Oh, wow! When the bishop's advisor said to me, no, you're a coach. And I went, but I want to be a priest. And it's like, I also probably wanted to be a ballerina and an astronaut. But the truth is my knowing is that I'm a coach.
Interesting. Somebody said to me once as I was walking away from my job in the Financial Times, having been made redundant, that was the polite word for it. He said, Dave, what did he say? He said, Don't do management. He shouted this across the road. Don't do management, do planning. And that's the last I ever saw or heard of him. Not because anything horrible happened to him, but just didn't see him ever again. So great. Okay, so we're gonna talk about what you do in a little bit more detail, even more detail, in just a second. I just want to say thank you to some of the people who have been on the program before. So we had Lucy from Garden of Italy, wonderful little business importing fine wines from vineyards in Italy. We had Prue from March and Pettit, the estate agents based down in the South Hams. Very interesting program. And Daphne from Essence of Exeter. That was 4 or 5 weeks ago. Talking about social enterprise funding and CICs and all that kind of thing. Very interesting. So Sound Art Radio 102.5 FM. Listening to Wavelength. I'm talking to Dawn. And so Dawn, let's talk about that offer. So let's talk about this, the services, if you like. Not necessarily let's talk about the techniques, the services, but also some of those things that you've mentioned, the joy of the 9 to 5 and how you kind of engage people and tools.
Absolutely. So my consultancy, I work both on my own with trusted partners doing the stuff you'd expect for career coaching. So we do CVs, interview coaching, imposter syndrome, all of those different things that people struggle with, confidence. Yep. But the more important thing is I offer one-to-one coaching sessions. Usually it's a very short package of no more than 6 sessions, either face-to-face via Skype or phone, depending upon where people are. And what I specialize is actually really listening, deep listening, to help people understand what's blocking them from showing up for their best selves in their careers and their business. That could be something like, repeatedly asking the same, bringing the same, my own blocks were, coming down to Devon and assuming London would work down here. By the way, it doesn't. The Devonian kind of mentality is very different. People don't want innovation and change and stuff like that. What they want is quality of life and to improve the world. Yeah. And so, when I even, every time I talk to people about what they're passionate about, I really have to listen really deeply and hear what they're saying. And then, and this is really the key. The key is in deep listening. So, we spend some time together and, what I do is keep pointing them at that internal knowledge that, what's blocking, what behaviors, attitudes, but most of all, what's happening in your thinking that's preventing you from showing up to the opportunities that are coming in life. And I think, I could tell you, my background is I've done tons of therapeutic interventions. I understand psychology, positive psychology, a bit of NLP, things like that. But those are all tools. And tools are useful, but the real change, each individual has the capability of being their best self. So if I were to say to you that me showing up and being a gardener today is as of a great impact in the world as me being a coach or me being CEO of a company. Sure. Because everything is kind of cohesive. It's all part of a greater whole. Yeah. So it doesn't matter if I'm, I always say that I want to write a book and my book is going to be banking to benefits in 6 months because I was at the top of Canary Wharf and I was doing phenomenally well as a coach, coaching massive teams at the head of risk at a very large bank. And then 6 months later, I was on benefits on JSA and I was like, what happened to my life? I felt like I'd been hit by a steam train. But actually looking back with hindsight, I was okay. I still had food on the table. I was intrinsically a valuable human being. As a matter of fact, more valuable because I could be of service in the world around me. So I was working with Christians Against Poverty, doing free career coaching. I was helping friends with their CVs. Whereas when I was in that rat race 9 to 5 of running around desperately trying to get business, it wasn't showing up. Sure. And that's what I try to help my clients to see. Slow down, get in touch with your inner calm, and the answers and insights come from within you, specifically around your career. So that's kind of what I offer. And I think one of the key things about my coaching is that I don't ask my clients to do anything. You don't come away with me with reams of homework. I'll give you some exercises and stuff that might be useful. But what I ask them to do is to be in the process. There's going to be some uncomfortable bits. I might poke a little bits that are a little bit sensitive and ask you to think about that. But I think everybody wants, okay, I'm going to come along, you're going to give me a CB and I'm going to get that job. That might not be the best job for you.
Sure.
What do you really want? Or I really want to win this funding with this venture capital company. But is that venture capital company really like in line with your ethics? Is that really what you want to do? Or is there something going on in the background that's saying you're being propelled towards something that you don't want? So I think one of the things is, for me, and even getting quiet now, when people get quiet and really connect to their intuition, they really get creative. We work from a place of flow when we're quiet and we're in our best selves. When we're in our thinking, we're not. But when we're really quiet and we're actually in the moment, amazing things can happen in the boardroom, or I have a friend that says in the boardroom or in the bedroom, but we won't talk about that kind of coaching today.
No, okay. Well, maybe next time.
Thanks, Dave.
So I'm following what you're saying, and I can't help thinking that you're never going to be really short of work, are you, in our culture, our work business culture today? Because there's a couple of words out there that I think, personally, are a little bit dangerous. Ambition is one of them, and just words that are thrown around. They become entertainment TV series where actually they make people look foolish. Things like innovation and entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So and success. In order to succeed, you need to be innovative. You need to be an entrepreneur. You need to be ambitious. But in actual fact, there's nothing wrong, as you've said. In fact, that's the wrong way of saying it. There are many, many things right with being anything, whether you're working in your local store, whether you're pumping gas, whether you're gardening. You can be a chief executive, no problem with that either. But success it's not a hierarchy.
No.
It's just a whole sort of web of interdependency.
Well, we're all, I really, on an esoteric way, I don't want to be too kind of, I believe we're all interconnected. And I believe that I have a friend who's never worked a day in her life. She has severe mental health problems. We speak every single day. And she has made more impact on me in my career than any other human being on the planet because she's present. Right. Not because of the presence that she gives me, i.e. the things, but because of her presence. Yeah. And I think the greatest gift of coaching is for someone else to be present for you, not to give you tools, techniques, and presence in this world.
Right. Interesting. Great. Okay, so I'm just going to have a little break there for a second, just to remind people that you're listening to Wavelength. It's a weekly business show. It's a way of helping to fund Sound Art Radio, which itself is not for profit. So it's a great place to reach out to a live audience, plus your network. You can support independent and small media at the same time. Search Sound Art Radio, search I Am The How. That's all one word, I Am The How. And give me a call. We've got Ellen from Nelly PR coming, I think, in a week or two. I've been talking to Ellen for over a year, so great to have her on. Andrea, the Light Path astrologist, and Jonathan from Topsham towards Exeter, multi-story thinking. He's an architect and designer. So, all kinds of people come on this program, and it's just really interesting to hear what they do and why they do it, which is what I'm going to ask you, Dawn. So why do you do, what's the motivation for what you do?
I actually have to say, I think we were speaking before the interview, I actually have endless amounts of energy, full stop, no. But mostly for learning, helping, and growing others. I cannot, there's just something magical about seeing someone step in to what is their perfect career, what is their perfect joy within what they do.
Yep.
And I think now that I've seen the impact of this with clients, and I've seen what it looks like when someone is able to spend time with their family and yet still have the ambition and, all of those things that you said, ambition to one person might not be the same thing to another.
Sure.
Most of my clients' ambitions is to actually live their best lives, and for me, it's not about drive or about success or about anything else. What it's about is about showing up, being present, and seeing what happens.
Sure.
And being able to be part of that actually brings me to tears a little bit. Is one of the greatest gifts in the world, to see someone come out of themselves in their business or in their careers and change. to what they really know they intrinsically are, which is fundamentally fine no matter what happens, is the greatest gift that I've been given in life. And I think it really is my purpose.
Better than being a vet.
Well, do you know, rather than being a vet, yeah. And I've met a lot of vets who that was their purpose.
Yeah,
but
well,
this isn't mine.
Nothing wrong with being a vet.
I always thought it was, but it's not.
Yeah, nothing wrong with being a vet, of course. So, what kind of feedback do people say? I mean, what do people say to you? The kind of people you work with, what do they come back with?
I think the best example is actually what I wrote a little blurb about what someone said, but I think actually I'm going to tell you about the backstory to this. So I've known someone for about 20 years, and he's been in my life for a very long time. And he moved down to Devon and started a farming business, and that farming business is really struggling. And so what he did is he asked me to come in and help coach him and his wife. Mm-hmm. And so we worked together over the last 9 months, and I got a piece of direct feedback from him, which I thought was beautiful, which was, we can't believe where we are after 9 months in terms of strategy, execution, and some of the very most difficult choices of our business. And most of all, the joy that we have in the work-life balance with our family. Thank you. And the other greatest compliment is this client's actually going up to London with me on Friday because he's been so inspired by coaching that he wants to become a coach himself.
Right.
And I think that says volumes more about the process than anything else. And I'm not saying everybody is going to come away from this wanting to be a coach, because trust me, it's not everybody's purpose. Yeah. But it was such a compliment because they went from a fractured business with lots of HR problems, lots of problems with their employees, lots of problems. I mean, their family was, they kept telling me they want to spend more time with their family. And the feedback that I got from them, this is very recent, it's like right at the tip of my head right now, was that they just went on holiday to France. They were supposed to do tons of things when they were away. They didn't do anything. And what they actually said was their little son, who's the same age as my daughter, who's 7, came to them and said, "Mommy and Daddy, that was the best holiday we ever had." Okay. And they came back to this burst of innovation, this burst of amazing, just these ideas. I mean, they're gonna start a cider club. They're gonna start doing. They own an apple farm, and I'm watching them bloom. And they're now ready, because a job of a coach is to bring you somewhere and then you can do it on your own. I don't want to work with clients for the rest of their lives. I'm happy to do that, Sure. I'm happy to check in, but I don't get my business from holding your hand. Therapists sometimes can do that. Other people can do that, but a coach's job is to get you to a point and then let you go. Right. I think anybody who works from a place of intuition and brings out the wisdom in your clients, once that wisdom's out, I can't do anymore. My pot's empty. Yeah. And there are other guides on the journey. So that's kind of what people are saying. They're kind of saying it whatever it is, and it's in them anyway, is working. And I just get to stand back and watch it happen. And sometimes get paid, which is always good.
Yeah, absolutely. And so how do people find out more about your offer and what's the best way of getting hold of you?
I've got to be completely honest. The best way is to arrange a free 15-minute Skype call with me, or a face-to-face coffee. If you're in South Hams or near, I live in Chudley, as you know, or Exeter, just reach out. I mean, Dave, you're going to put some stuff on the podcast about my email address. I'm happy to give that out now. It's just dawn@angelion.io. I also am on LinkedIn. You can find me under dawn.wesolek, WESOLEK. Just look me up. Don't be blown away by the career, because it's not that important. What's important is you. But I think the biggest thing is that just reach out. I offer a free 15-minute conversation, and even if it's just to say, I'm stuck.
Sure. Give you a call.
Give me a call.
Okay.
And Dave, I'm happy to provide you with my number as well.
Okay. Well, I'll stick that online.
Thank you.
We'll do that. So, what about hobbies and pastimes and relaxing? What do you do?
What do I do to relax? You're going to laugh. I take courses. No, I really do. No, I cross stitch. I know that probably sounds really strange.
No, I like the idea of that.
I write a lot of poetry.
Okay.
I've been looking recently at maybe doing some performing of poetry. Yeah. And my daughter has a passion to become an actress. So she's been 3. She wanted to be an actress. So we've recently signed up for the Amateur Dramatic Society in Chudley. Mm-hmm. And we will both be starring in the Panto in February. So everybody come along. It's Alice in Wonderland. And I do believe that when I was a child and I wanted to be a vet, my parents encouraged me. And the greatest gift that you can give a child is to see them and encourage them regardless of how it turns out.
Sure. Absolutely. Good advice. Very good advice indeed. So, Panto season.
Panto, yes. Alice in Wonderland. Come along. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I'm on a comedy double act. Come on.
And, okay, so nearing the end of the program, couple of questions. So, what's next for your business? What kind of ambitions have you got over the next couple of years, say?
I think the key thing for me is, I think you and I have spoken about this, Dave, as well. I want to start getting the message out. So I really enjoy podcasting. I enjoy kind of speaking. I do a lot of speaking engagements. But really what I want to do is shift my focus away from corporate London to Devon.
Yeah.
I believe that there is so much latent talent in Devon. I want to help people here, small businesses, entrepreneurs, but not, people are starting their own startups, but also businesses that are really focused on the local community and making a difference. There is so much latent talent down here that needs illuminating, like you're doing, needs being shown to the world. And I want to be part of that light.
Fantastic. Well, I agree with that. I think I spent a lot of time working in London. I love London, but it has this property of being a bit of a black hole. It sucks it has a huge pull, sucks everything in, and it's difficult for people to come out. I know it's really difficult to get out, but I did it. I know lots of other people who did too. But it does require effort, faith, a leap of faith, and all kinds of things. But fundamentally, like you've said, this sort of resilience and a belief that life goes on. Life isn't just in these sort of city centres. So yeah, totally get that. Had a very interesting conversation with a guy in Totnes who's I think quite well known, but I met him for the first time. Hal, he's part of the Regen part of Totnes. He's very much talking the same language, local activity, local business, local stuff, energy. So yeah, all good. And last question, the bigger narrative. How does all this stuff, all these things that we've been talking about, how does it all tie in with the sort of these sort of bigger narratives that we hear about work-life balance, slave to the train, slave to digital? Where are we? I mean, this is an impossible question for you to answer in the time we've got, but what are your thoughts?
I've done a lot of presentations on the future of work in my technological world, my background, but we are fundamentally facing a huge shift in the way that we work. A lot of manual jobs are going away, and a lot of jobs that require a lot more emotional intelligence and intuitive intelligence are coming. And I really want to help people when they're looking at their careers and businesses to be conscious of the environmental impact, the societal impact, the ethical impact of what they do. And I think more than ever, people need the skills, the aptitude, but most of all, the courage to embrace this change in way of working. I think you said it best. Sometimes you just need someone else to bring out the bravery that you always knew you had. And I'm ready to help guide other people and guide them in what, as you said, the changes that I've gone through. But the biggest thing is so that they can bring their best selves into the future, and the future that we're leaving our children. Because, for me, that's something I'm most passionate about. We are in a place of change, but change isn't a bad thing.
No.
Change is a good thing. And we now are at a time where we need people really to tap into that intuitive wisdom about where they're best placed and where their wisdom is, without being afraid of the past and it repeating itself and failure. Those are all big words that we bandy around. What happens if this happens? We don't know about the future.
Sure.
We don't know about the past. The only thing we can do is show up moment to moment with our best self. And that's really what I think my business tails into, is that, my little board that I put outside is to say, how can I help you find your best self in your business and your career? Because I think that you're 9 to 5, enjoying that, and I face every day with joy. I wake up every morning and I'm smiling. The people in Chudley must think I'm mad. I'm usually walking around smiling, and that's because I've found my happy, and I want everyone to do that.
Yeah, great. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, well, thanks. I'll just remind everybody, you've been listening to Wavelength on Sound Art Radio. I'm Dave Clark. I am the How. I've been talking with Dawn. To get your business featured, search Sound Art Radio or I Am The How. You can listen to this program and many others on Google Podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, many other platforms. Please share and subscribe. Contact me if you'd like to appear on the show. Don't forget, it's also a great way to support independent media. Dawn, thanks very much for coming in. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, Dave. It's an honour, and I really appreciate what you're doing for local business.
Well, that's very kind. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks very much. Podcasting for brands. I am the how.com.